His parents refused to keep the stray cat he brought home, but none of them could have predicted what would happen after that. Can I have a kitten? Oren asks this question every single day. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time a commercial with a cat came on television. His mother, June, shakes her head. Absolutely not. His father, Glen, does not even look up from the newspaper. We talked about this, Oren. The answer is no. His name was Oren, and he did not stop asking. He cannot stop. He loved animals the way some people love superheroes, completely and without limits. He watched nature documentaries instead of cartoons. He kept a notebook where he drew every stray cat he spotted from the kitchen window, each one with a name and a backstory he invented. His mother June smiled and ruffled his hair, but when Oren turned with that familiar look in his eyes, her smile faded. "Honey, we talked about this. When you are older," she tells Oren. "When you have your own place." Oren slumped into his chair. He did not argue. He just asked again the next day, and the day after that. His teacher, Mrs. Abernathy, called June in early March. "Oren wrote the most beautiful essay about why every kid deserves an animal companion," she said. "He used words like loyalty and devotion. I almost cried." June thanked her and hung up. She sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at nothing. She was not heartless. She loved her son more than air. But their apartment was small. Money was tight. A pet meant vet bills, food, mess. She could not take on one more thing. So the answer stayed no. Then spring arrived. Oren walked home from school through the back alley behind their building, when he heard a sound. Thin and broken, like a door hinge that needed oil. It came from behind the recycling bins. Oren crouched down and peered into the shadows, and there, pressed against the brick wall, shaking from nose to tail, sat a cat. Maybe a year or two old. His fur was dark gray and matted into clumps. A patch of white sat on his chest, like a medal for surviving. His eyes were enormous and gold, and they looked at Oren with a desperate hope. "Hey there," Oren whispered. "It is okay. I am not going to hurt you." He reaches out slowly. The cat flinches, then leans forward, sniffs his fingers, and pushes its head into his palm. Oren felt something click into place inside his heart. He scooped the cat into his arms. The cat pressed against his chest and began to purr. Oren ran home. He burst through the front door with the cat clutched to his jacket. "Mom! Dad! Look!" June turned from the kitchen counter. Her eyes went wide. "Oren, no! Put that animal down right now." "But Mom, he was behind the bins. He is starving." Glen appeared in the hallway, still in his work boots. He looked at the matted gray cat, then at the dirt smeared across Oren's school shirt, and shook his head. "No, absolutely not. Put him outside right now." "But Dad, please, just look at him. He is so scared. He has nobody." "He is covered in fleas, Oren. He could have diseases. Take him out." Before we move on with the story, a quick like and subscribe would mean a lot for the channel. The ending of this story is something you won't expect. Oren stood in the hallway, holding that cat like it was the most important thing in the universe. And for him, it was. June watched her son. She looked at Glen. "We are not keeping a stray inside this apartment," Glen said. But there was a crack in his voice. Barely there, but she heard it. June kneels in front of Oren. "Sweetheart, we cannot have a cat inside, you know that." She pauses. "But maybe we can find a middle way." The compromise was simple. Oren could feed the cat outside. The cat would live in the courtyard, not in the apartment. If Oren kept his grades up and did his chores without being asked, he could spend his pocket money on the cat however he wanted. Those were the terms. Oren agreed before she finished the sentence. He understands this is the best deal he will get. He named the cat Rumble because of that purr. That deep, rolling, impossible purr that sounded like thunder trapped inside a very small body. That very evening, Oren built Rumble a house. He found a sturdy cardboard box and lined it with an old towel from the bathroom. He cut a door in the front with scissors, taped a sheet of plastic over the top for rain, and placed it beneath the stairwell of their building, where the wind could not reach. Then he sat beside it and put a bowl of leftover chicken inside. Rumble sniffed the bowl cautiously, looked up at Oren as if asking permission, and then ate like he had not seen food in weeks, because he probably had not. Oren watched him eat and smiled so wide that his gap-toothed grin seemed to take over his entire face. But he didn't yet know what awaited him next. From that day forward, Oren and Rumble were inseparable. Every morning before school, he refilled the water bowl, left a scoop of kibble he had bought with his pocket money, and sat with Rumble for as long as he could. Every afternoon, he dropped his backpack inside the apartment and went straight back down to the courtyard. He read to Rumble, out loud, sitting cross-legged on the pavement with his school book open on his lap while the cat sat beside him, golden eyes half closed, purring steadily. He told Rumble about his day. Rumble would blink slowly, which Oren had read meant, "I love you," in cat language. Oren always blinked back. He started doing chores without being asked. Dishes after dinner, trash every night, sweeping on weekends. June watched this transformation with quiet astonishment. "He set his alarm for 6:30 this morning," she told Glen one evening, "on a Saturday, so he could feed that cat before it got hungry." Glen said nothing. But the next morning, June noticed a small bag of premium cat food on the kitchen counter that she had not bought. She looked at Glen. He shrugged. "It was on sale," he muttered, and left for work. 3 weeks passed. Rumble changed. The mats fell out of his fur, revealing a coat that was sleek and soft, silver gray with that white patch on his chest. He gained weight. Oren bought him a small rubber ball with his saved-up money. He tossed it across the courtyard, and Rumble chased it like his life depended on it, skidding across the concrete, batting it between his paws, then carrying it back to Oren in his mouth like a dog. Old Mrs. Peretti from the ground floor started leaving fish scraps by the stairwell. "For your little gentleman," she told Oren with a wink. The building's maintenance man, Howard, brought a piece of plywood for the cardboard house. "Put this underneath," he said. "Keeps the damp out." Oren was happier than he had ever been. Then, something goes wrong. It started on a Tuesday. Oren came home from school and said his head hurt. June felt his forehead. "Go lie down for a bit," she said. "I will bring you some soup." By Wednesday, the fever climbed higher. Oren did not want dinner. He said the light from the window hurt his eyes. "Glen," she called, her voice tight and controlled. "We need to take him in, right now." They drove to the hospital in silence. Oren sat in the back seat, quiet and pale. He was not complaining. That scared June more than anything. Just before they pulled out of the parking lot, Oren spoke. "Who is going to feed Rumble?" Those were the last clear words he said for a long time. At the hospital, the neurologist ran tests and scans. The news came that evening. Oren had viral encephalitis, a swelling in the brain caused by an infection. It had come on fast, as these things sometimes do. "We have started treatment," the doctor told them. "I want you to know that his body is handling this. He is a strong boy. But the swelling has put him into a coma, and right now, we need to give his brain time to heal." "How long?" Glen asked. "It varies. Could be days, could be longer. But his vitals are stable, and the scans are encouraging." June held Oren's hand in the hospital room that night. Glen sat in the chair by the window. He was not a man who cried easily, but when the room was dark and June was asleep, he took his son's hand and whispered, "Come back, buddy. Whenever you are ready, we are right here." They went home the next morning to shower and pack a bag. June opened the front door of the building. and there was Rumble. He sat directly on the welcome mat, his tail wrapped around his paws, staring up at the door. The moment he saw them, he meowed. This was urgent and sharp, like a question he needed answered immediately. He tried to push past their legs into the building. Glen blocked him with his foot. "Not now, Rumble," he said, his voice exhausted. "You are the last thing we need right now." Rumble sat back. He looked at them with those enormous gold eyes. He looked past them, into the hallway, searching for someone who was not there. Then he meowed again. Louder. June knelt down. She could not help it. She ran her hand over his head once, quickly. "He is in the hospital, Rumble," she said softly. "He is not here." Rumble stared at her. He did not move from the mat. They filled his food bowl before they left. June put extra water beside the cardboard house. Glen said nothing, but he opened a can of the good tuna and put it on the plate. Rumble followed them across the courtyard. He walked quickly, his tail high and urgent. When Glen opened the back door to toss in the duffel bag, Rumble launched himself into the car. He landed on the back seat like he had done it 100 times before. "Out," Glen said. "Come on, out of the car." Rumble looked at him and did not move. Glen reached in and lifted him out. Rumble squirmed but did not scratch. He sat on the asphalt and watched Glen close the door. He watched Rumble through the side mirror as they pulled away. He stood in the middle of the parking spot, watching the car leave. June turned forward and pressed her hand against her mouth. Every day that week, they drove back and forth between the hospital and home, and every single time, Rumble was waiting, directly in front of the building door. He sat very still, watching the door with a patience that seemed almost human. Each time they came home, he tried to follow them inside. June started letting him into the hallway while she filled his bowl. He would walk to Oren's shoes by the door and sniff them. Then he would look up the stairwell and meow, soft and searching, as if he expected to hear the boy's footsteps. "He knows," June told Glen one evening. "He knows something is wrong." "He is a cat, June. He just wants food." "Then why does he sit by the door for 12 hours straight? Howard told me he does not move all day, just sits there, waiting." Glen did not answer. He picked up Rumble's water bowl, rinsed it, and filled it with fresh water. At the hospital, days passed. Oren's body was recovering well, but he stayed in the coma. On day 9, Dr. Whalen sat down with June and Glen. "His recovery from the infection itself has been excellent," she said. "Physically, he is doing much better than we expected at this stage." "Then why is he still in the coma?" June asked. "The brain heals on its own timeline. Everything is moving in the right direction, but sometimes the mind needs a push, a reason to come back, if you will." "What kind of push?" "Familiar sensations can help. A favorite song, a familiar voice, even a familiar smell. We have seen cases where a strong emotional connection stimulates a response." She looked at both of them carefully. "Sometimes a beloved pet can make a difference. These things reach parts of the brain that words sometimes cannot." The word lands like a stone in still water. She looked at Glen. He was already looking at her. Neither of them said anything. They did not need to. They drove home that evening in silence. They parked and walked toward the entrance. Rumble was there, on the mat, in the exact same spot. He had been sitting there for 9 days. June knelt down on the concrete. She put both hands on the cat's sides. The purr started the instant she touched him. That deep, steady rumble that Oren loved so much. And something inside her that had been holding firm for weeks finally let go. "Okay," she whispered through tears. "Okay, Rumble. You win. You are coming with us." She wrapped him in an old towel from the cardboard house. This time, when she set him on the back seat, Glen did not say a word. He just started the engine. They drove to the hospital. June carried Rumble through the front doors. A security guard stopped them. "No animals in the building, ma'am." "Please call Dr. Whalen." The guard picked up the phone. 3 minutes later, Dr. Whalen appeared in the lobby. She looked at the cat in June's arms, then at June's face, pale and tear-stained and fierce. "Bring him up," the doctor said. They walked through the quiet hallways. Room 307. A monitor beeped softly beside Oren. June set Rumble on the bed. Rumble did not hesitate. He reached Oren's side, sniffed the boy's face, his hand. Then he lay down, right against Oren's ribs. He tucked his head under the boy's chin and began to purr. The sound filled the room. That small thunder. The sound Oren had fallen in love with behind a bin on an afternoon in April. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. June stood at the foot of the bed, gripping the rail. Glen stood beside her. Dr. Wayland watched the monitor from the doorway. Nothing changed. June closed her eyes. Her hope, already stretched so thin it was nearly transparent, began to tear at the edges. She reached toward the bed to pick up Rumble. "Wait," Dr. Wayland said sharply. "Look at the monitor." Oren's heart was beating faster. "Something is reaching him," the doctor said quietly. "Do not move the cat." Rumble purred louder. He kneaded the blanket with his front paws in that slow, rhythmic way cats do when they feel completely safe. He pressed closer to Oren's side. And then, Oren's right hand moved. Then, his hand drifted across the blanket and found fur. Dr. Wayland checked the monitors. "This is very encouraging," she said, and for the first time, her professional calm cracked into something that looked a lot like wonder. His brain is waking up. Rumble stayed on that bed all night. He did not leave the boy's side for a single moment. He just purred, steady and constant. The next morning, light came through the hospital blinds in long, golden stripes. June was asleep in the chair. Glen was asleep on the small couch. Rumble was curled against Oren's ribs, his gold eyes open, watching the boy's face. And then, a sound, like a whisper made of dust. "Rumble." June's eyes flew open. She stared at the bed. Oren's eyes were open. He was looking down at the cat beside him. "Rumble," he said again. It sounded like it had traveled a very long distance to get here. The cat lifted his head and meowed once. Then he pushed his face under Oren's chin, right where he always did. Oren's hand moved to stroke him. "Mom," he whispered, "you brought Rumble." "Yes, sweetheart, we brought him." "Is he allowed inside now?" June laughed through her tears. "He is allowed everywhere, baby. Anywhere he wants. Forever." Glen stood at the foot of the bed. He could not speak. He just nodded again and again, his jaw tight, his eyes red and shining. 2 weeks later, Oren went home. He walked through the front door. Rumble rode in his arms, right where he belonged. The apartment was ready. June had set up a proper cat bed beside Oren's bed, food bowls in the kitchen, a scratching post by the window, and a basket of toys on the shelf. She had done all of it the week before and had not told Glen. But when Glen saw it, he just reached down and scratched Rumble behind the ears. The cat purred and bumped his head against Glen's rough hand, and Glen smiled. That evening, the family sat together for dinner, all 3 of them, plus 1. Rumble sat on the chair beside Oren, his paws on the edge of the table, his golden eyes watching everything with dignified curiosity. "He is staying inside," June said. "He was always staying," Glen replied. "We were just too stubborn to figure that out." The cardboard house is still under the stairwell. Oren keeps it in good shape. Not for Rumble anymore, for the next one. The next stray that shows up cold and scared with nobody in the world. Because this story is not really about a boy waking up from a coma. It is about a family waking up from something else. From the idea that love has to be practical, that caring has limits, that a small life does not matter. The heart has more room than we think, and things we push away are often the things we need the most. Thank you for watching this story. If you liked it, please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me continue to share stories you will love.